Da, 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 da. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Welcome back. Good to be here. Nice to see you. I guess it's good to be seen. Generally speaking, I don't do this because I've got this like entitled attitude of like I'll go on the air whenever I want to go on the air. I'll do a podcast whenever I want to do. But well, I want to do one now because news broke today that I cannot ignore. Neither can my friend and compatriot at Crier Media, Charles Adler. Please welcome Charles back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Dean and Chuck show. Chuck over there, Dean over here. How you doing, fella? Nice to see you.
Why don't we have a big lunged, bingo caller for this one going special edition, Crier Media special edition.
Breaking news. I don't know.
I got to do it out of the side of your mouth.
Breaking news. I got really tired of the breaking news sounders during the like the Donald Trump years. Remember those? Like every 2 seconds.
We got the news, and this is news for Canada. But let's be brutally honest, because some parts of Canada will care more than others. Ontario will care the most. So this is the biggest breaking news for Ontario since COVID, and this breaking news story will be a story for a long time. A criminal investigation, can't call him a criminal. He's not been prosecuted. It's not him necessarily. It's the government. But the Ford government is now under an RCMP criminal investigation. A reminder, the RCMP doesn't go public with these things until and unless it has evidence. So it has evidence of criminal behavior on the part of the Ford government. Doug Ford politically is toast.
Yeah. This is nuclear stuff, Chuck.
Yeah. It doesn't get any larger. I just want to emphasize the RCMP doesn't get casual about these things. Very rarely do you hear a Canadian news story with the RCMP acronym beside criminal investigation. And a reminder, every time you do, the shit hits the fan.
Okay, so thank you for setting the table for us. It looks like a delicious dinner we're about to eat.
Yeah, and I don't use the word fan casually. So
no,
if I say fan,
Well, I want to get to it because one of the things that I saw Richard Southern from 680 News, nice gentleman, follows me. He retweets some stuff. I retweet his stuff. He's a very good reporter, and he obviously works for Rogers, which owns 680 News here in this beautiful city that I live in, Toronto. And to kind of give you some backstory on, and I want to get to that backstory, is the devil's in the details. Richard says the RCMP have launched a criminal investigation into the Ford government land swap. This is the GreenBelt scandal everybody's been talking about. We knew they were looking into it, but they didn't talk about looking into it, to your point. RCMP has now told City News its International Investigations Unit, that doesn't sound awesome for Doug, has now launched an investigation saying, quote, while we recognize this investigation is of significant interest to Canadians, the RCMP has a duty to protect the integrity of the investigation it carries out in order to ensure that the process leads to fair and proper outcome. Therefore, no further updates will be provided at this time. Now, Chuck, explain that, because you just told me something I didn't know. The RCMP doesn't come out and go, oh, by the way, we're investigating, and it's this unit that's investigating. Right. Unless there's something to investigate, correct?
So just so we're clear here, when the RCMP says they have launched an investigation, they don't tell you when the investigation was launched. But the truth of the truth is the investigation was launched a while ago. We don't know whether it was launched before all of the stuff hit the fan in the news about the GreenBelt, whether it was launched before then or shortly thereafter. But this thing has been investigated by a number of people for quite some time. So if we were to sort of create a headline that was very precise and very true, we'd have to say that an RCMP investigation has determined that this is very serious and this is on the road to a potential prosecution of either members of the Ford government or the Ford government. But either way, people need to know that the investigation isn't being launched today just because the announcement is today. The RCMP never announced until after there has already been an investigation. I'm not suggesting the investigation is over. I am suggesting, though, that the investigation is at a point where you can take the words criminal investigation to the bank.
Now listen, I've used that term loosely, and you've admonished me for it in the past.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Um,
I just think, aside from the fact that
yeah.
it's illegal to call someone a criminal unless they've been convicted, the idea of a criminal investigation or criminal inquiry is so serious that one takes away its seriousness when one is loosey-goosey about the word. It's a serious word. It means something.
Now, then the RCMP would not use that word to denote what kind of investigation they were having. So, what do you think? And what do you think that process has been like?
Well, it just tells me that they have found hard evidence. They have found hard evidence that this wasn't just a little bit of misbehavior, that this rose to a level. And everyone also needs to know that regardless of what they may think of government, what they may think of the law, what they may think of a lot of things, the people who enforce laws in this country at all levels, and the people who investigate laws and unlawful behavior at all levels are extremely careful before they tip their hand that something has been discovered that is nefarious and that is potentially criminal. And the reason for that is because there's a tradition in this country. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about Ontario, British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Quebec, it doesn't matter. Nobody involved in the supply chain of criminal prosecution, investigation, and prosecution, nobody involved in the supply chain wants to use these words unless there is a high probability of conviction. So you can take this to the bank. We are on the road to a high probability of conviction. I'm not doing anything defamatory there. I'm right on the line, but I have not crossed the line.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're in these rooms, right? You've been in rooms where these things have gone sideways.
Yeah.
When you used to, for a lack of a better term, be a strategist for the conservative machine back before it became this weirdness that it is today. So take me through, right? Take me through what's going on, because you know these people. You know a lot of them. You know a lot
but
of
just so we're clear, I was never an official strategist.
They came to you because you were a communications.
I was an expert in discussing how the public feels about certain things, and I didn't mind lending my advice, but I lent my advice to liberals as well. I mean, there were certain people at high levels of government who wanted to know how the public felt about things, and I felt privileged because the public was sharing so much information with me. And remember, much of the information the public has shared with me in the old days on snail mail, then later on email and social media, people have shared all kinds of stuff with me that I never went public with. That was as private as could be, but it was important. So I'm confident in this particular case that certain people in the know who do not have their names in the news at all have shared very sensitive information with the Mounties, and that's why we got this announcement today. Not just the fact that some people have shared information, but much more important, the RCMP has been able to corroborate the information. It's one thing to get a tip, but you need to corroborate a tip for this to be serious, which it is.
So you think someone leaked? You think someone inside Doug Ford's inner circle, or someone in the know, has been part and party to what has gone on around the GreenBelt scandal? I'm parsing my words so I don't get you in trouble.
No, that's fine. You generally have a situation where people who do feel guilt themselves will offer information because they're advised by their lawyers that you're much better off coming forward as soon as possible. And for the simplest of reasons, it's a smart transaction to help the RCMP to avoid being attacked in a legal way by the RCMP. So if you want to roll on somebody else, that can sometimes give you a much lighter sentence and perhaps no sentence at all. But all of these things are negotiated. There's no way that we get today's announcement without some serious negotiating having taken place for information and corroboration of the information. And pardon me, folks, if I sound much more cautious than usual, but when it comes to these kinds of stories, I am super cautious. I don't want to hype the story, but I also don't want to underestimate its significance.
Whereas I'm the exact opposite. I would like to hype the story and underestimate all the significance.
Well, listen, it's a free country, and you can go anyway. You can go in any direction you
Okay,
want.
so
You've got your brand, and I've got mine.
I know we come together
Yeah,
beautifully like
yeah,
ham and
yeah,
eggs.
yeah.
Explain the international flavor to this because that interests me. It was in
Yeah.
Richard Southern's quick tweet. He's like,
Mhm.
the RCMP is now conducting a criminal investigation of
Yeah.
the GreenBelt issue around Doug Ford and his government. And it's the International Investigations Unit of the RCMP. Now, we've seen some international flavor here with people from all over the world without me getting into it. Why would that be the case when it comes to an Ontario issue?
Because, of course, real estate and real estate in Canada, and more specifically, real estate in Ontario, real estate that is likely to go up substantially in value, like the real estate in the Greenbelt, is something that is looked at by people all over the world. I don't have to tell you that we've got many people in Ontario who have tremendous networking skills all over the world. We've got many people in Ontario who are born elsewhere, many people who are born in Ontario, but of course have family who were born elsewhere. Canada, as far as real estate is concerned, Canada is very, very much a trophy for international capital. So it should surprise no one that what in at the very basic level is a real estate story, a very high end real estate story, is something that high end capital worldwide is interested in.
Who's shitting their pants today with that announcement? Because like if I think about what goes on with an announcement like this, where the RCMP is like, we're onto something, because it's basically what they said, we're onto something.
Yeah,
And you know, Doug Ford is the epicenter of that conservative political machine. He's
yeah.
actually done it better than the federal party as far as hiding his intentions, et cetera, et cetera. But if you pull it a couple of these strings, right? And I can't pull it any because I'm not prepared to do it and I don't have the information in front of me. But like, what is the significance of this? And if you're you, which you are, who are you looking at to head for the exits immediately? Like, what's at stake here, not just for conservatives in this province and Doug Ford, but conservatives in the country?
Well, look, I don't have to tell you that Ontario is a third of the country's population, but beyond that, it's more than a third of when it comes to capital. It's the business capital, it's the communications capital of Canada. So it's much more than just a province. It's a political and financial powerhouse, and so as far as the parochial nature of this, like who is most threatened, who's most aggravated by this, that isn't likely under any kind of criminal investigation, but is really upset, is really ticked off, and that would be anyone involved in fundraising for the Progressive Conservative Party in Ontario, because it's very difficult to get people to write checks, get the Visa card out, whatever it is. Very, very difficult to get people to donate money to what they think of as a potentially criminal enterprise. So if you can't raise money in politics, you're nothing. The number one reason, outside of the social media that they do and the antipathy to Justin Trudeau and all of that, from a pure business of politics perspective, the number one thing that the Conservatives nationally have had going for them ever since the days of Stephen Harper was an ability and a talent, I got to say it, a real talent for raising money. They raise much more money than anyone else. And I've got to say this about the people behind uh, the fundraising colleagues of Doug Ford. They too have an incredible talent for raising money. So those people who are involved in getting money into the PC piggy bank are very unhappy today.
Yeah, well, and as are their partners and donors, right? Like, it's not just about getting money in; it's about the money you get coming out if you put the money in.
Yeah, and
Depending
those
on
people
who
who
you,
feel that, yeah, those people who feel they've made an investment
yeah.
are now investing in what they think of as a penny stock.
When you say toast, you're like Doug Ford's toast.
Yeah,
What does that mean?
politically. I said politically. I'm
No,
not
no, no,
putting the
no, no.
orange
Yep, yep.
jumpsuit on them or anything like. I'm not doing that. Other
Can
people
I?
can do that. You can do. It's a free country, my friend. You can do anything you like. But when I say the word politically toast
Yeah.
because he has absolutely nowhere to go. He has hit the wall. And if I were advising Doug Ford, which I never have, and I never will. But if I were an advisor to Doug Ford, I would tell him to find an opportunity in the next few weeks to resign and to simply say that he's a good conservative, and as a good conservative who wants to be helpful to his party and to be helpful to the government of Ontario, it's best that he step aside because he is a serious distraction and an impediment to the progress of that party. The government does not have to resign. They can put off an election for quite some time because they were elected only relatively recently. But for that government to have any cred at all, and frankly, the ability to do as much as possible for the people of Ontario. Everyone needs to know that the biggest chunk of the economy is the government. The government of Ontario is a very, very big deal. You can make fun of the people who run the government, but most of the government of Ontario, like the government of any country, are honest people who are working in the public sector. And there are many members of the private sector who count on the government to be competent and not to appear corrupt. So if I were advising Doug Ford, I'd say, Doug, you've got to hit the trail as soon as possible.
Are some of his compatriots in other provinces filling their pants today too? I mean, it's all interconnected. You know how the machine works. Or is this singularly a Doug Ford issue? And how do other people that have done business with him separate themselves from what appears to be a very serious criminal investigation?
Well, if you're Pierre Poilievre, you don't want the term conservative associated with criminal. Now, I am thinking at this moment, just based on some noise in my ear, that Doug Ford may have just made a statement. We need to check out.
Yeah, I got it here.
Okay, what's the
breaking news statement from Doug Ford. The government will fully cooperate with any investigation. Of course, you got to say that. We have zero tolerance for any wrongdoing and expect anyone involved in the decision-making about the Greenbelt lands to have followed the letter of the law.
Right.
Out of respect for the police and their process, we will not be commenting further at this time. Your thoughts, Mr. Adler?
Well, that's the minimum that's something that he has to say, and that's something his lawyer would have told him to say. You've got to acknowledge the story. You've got to acknowledge the fact that the RCMP is investigating, and I guess politically, you've got to say that you're gonna come out of this clean, that you've done nothing wrong. But in the coming days, if I were Doug Ford, I would resign, and I would hand over authority to a member of the cabinet, the deputy premier, let the Conservative Party, figure out what they need to do to go forward. But we've got years left in this government, and I just cannot imagine this government accomplishing very much with Doug Ford as the head. Once your name is associated with a criminal investigation, politically, it's almost impossible to be effective.
I got a question for you, because let's just go through this together. The government will fully, this is a statement again, Charles, the government will fully cooperate with any investigation. This is where it gets funny to me. We have zero tolerance for any wrongdoing. Expect anyone involved in decision-making about the Greenbelt lands to follow the letter of the law. It is accepted news. It's accepted fact that he had everything to do with this. So, does he take, in your opinion, and you say this is the minimum, but does he take us all for idiots still?
I don't know. I mean, I don't like the game of being inside Doug Ford's head, and how does Doug Ford see people and all the rest of it. I don't even believe that Doug Ford dislikes people. I think he does like people. He likes common people, but he really, really likes rich people who give him money. And I think he sometimes sees himself as working for them, as opposed to the general public. And what you and I may see as unfair, he doesn't necessarily see as unfair. And he may see people who, have lots of dough to give him as great contributors to a very valuable cause. And maybe these great contributors ought to get a heads up on things. Of course, everything I'm talking about is unethical and borderline criminal. We'll find out what the RCMP has in due time. Yeah. But at the moment, they have his jewels in a vice, and I just do not know how, at this point, he can go forward and be effective. And I think about various crises that take place in Canada, and we don't have a crisis right now. We don't have a public health crisis or an economic crisis, but these things do happen. And if we did have an economic or a public health crisis, do you want Doug Ford representing the government of Ontario? And I cannot imagine any objective person saying, yeah, because it's not that he wouldn't want to be as helpful as possible, but he's just not credible. And when he asks people to make certain sacrifices, it's going to be very difficult for people to either make those sacrifices or take him seriously, because he's got this cloud over the head, and it's a dark cloud, and it's going to get thicker and darker as time goes on, because I anticipate that there may be some leakage from this investigation, and that's not good for him. If he's no longer the premier, it still may not be good for him, but it's not as lethal to the people of Ontario if he's a premier. If there's more leakage from this investigation and he is still the premier, that basically paralyzes the government. No matter how there are libertarians who believe in smaller government, microscopically small government, some anarchists out there who believe in no government. I don't care about them. I'm always interested in the broad middle of stable people, okay, who understand that this society that we live in is a complicated society, and without efficient, good government that is not corrupt, government that is not under investigation, without all of that, we do not have the flavor of Canadian life that we've come to expect.
So, well said, as always. But two things, and maybe the last couple of questions I would ask you, Charles Adler. Obviously, we're talking about Doug Ford now being under criminal investigation by the international unit.
Doug Ford's government, just to be
Doug
clear.
Ford's government.
Doug Ford's government, yeah.
Under criminal investigation into the land swap deal that has been since scuttled and wrongdoing has been admitted. RCMP come out with a statement today, not something that happens if they don't have something, which you've kind of let us in on, or not something that they would say unless they had some kind of proof.
And in all of the preamble and ramble, Dean, it should not be forgotten that Doug Ford apologized recently. Now, it is very fair to ask the question, would Doug Ford have apologized if he didn't have a heads up that the RCMP were taking it extremely seriously and might at some point announce that it was a criminal investigation? I'm sure that on this day, he feels somewhat cleaner for having apologized. I'm not saying that gets him off the hook, but I don't think he apologized for any reason. It's very rare for...
Yeah, that's a legal strategy, right? It's to mitigate damages.
Right. It's very rare for the head of a government to apologize for anything. If he does, it's because lawyers have said, you got to do this.
Yeah. Totally. Which brings me to my kind of last question, or one of the last questions, depending on if another one pops up in my weird head. How does this end? Because if the RCMP are going to telegraph and say, yeah, we got something, we're conducting a criminal investigation into the Ontario government and the land swap deal, and it seems broad in nature, and the international investigations unit has been tapped to kind of, lead this whole thing, and they've been at it for a few months now, from my understanding of everything that I kind of gathered and you've kind of said that too. It's not like it just started. This is it's been going on for a while. How does it end? How do you, if let's just kind of hypothetical this thing like an MF,
sure.
If let's say some people get charged, and let's say it's the premier, let's say it's the deputy premier, let's say it's the housing guy, let's say it's the former housing person, let's say it's, a couple of dozen people that are involved in the business of running this province. How do you charge a whole bunch of people, and how does the business of the province continue to work? I've never... we're in uncharted territory.
The people who are charged cannot remain in power because their moral authority has been undermined. And a trial takes place. It usually takes a long time to have a trial. And in the meantime, the government of Ontario is under this cloud. Now, I'll go to the next level here. If the PCs wanted to be absolutely as clean as possible and serve the interests of the people of Ontario, the government would resign, period. And Doug Ford wouldn't be the one running. There'd be an interim leader. There would be an election, and the opportunity would be given to the Liberals and or the NDP to run the next government. But frankly, if they were only thinking, and this is never the case, it's an ideal world, but if the Conservatives who run the government in Ontario, if they were only thinking of the people, then in the next few months they would figure out how to call an election. I don't think that'll happen. But if they were only concerned about public service and having the democracy work as good as it can under the circumstances, they would let the people make the final judgment as to whether or not the PCs deserve to remain in power.
That is huge. For you to say that, dude, like of all the people that I consult with or talk to or whose opinions matter to me, to say that, if people start getting charged, there's really one solution for the best interests of the people that the Conservatives say they govern, as well as government as it works as a whole for the people. That's the government has to resign.
Democracy only works well when people have confidence in the government. It's absolutely important. And if people who are in charge of government every day when they wake up, if the first question they ask is, what can we do to engender maximum confidence from the public? At some point, those people, if they ask that question and do honest reflection on the best possible thing to do, is let the people make the decision. A guy like Doug Ford, does his populism. People can judge whether it's real or not real. But Doug Ford talks about the people, the folks. Hey, folks, I'm your guy, folks. Well, if Doug really cares about the folks, then it's time coming soon. Not this minute, not tonight, but coming soon, Mr. Ford. It's time to give the folks a chance to render a judgment.
Charles Adler, the Charles Adler podcast, highly encourage you to go and subscribe to it. And 3 Minutes That Matter, one of my favorite features. You can check it out at Crier Media. You can also go to Charles's Twitter account at Charles Adler is where you can find him. CharlesAdler.com is the name of his website as well. Go and download and sub his podcast. You can get it anywhere you can find podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, etc. Thank you for taking a minute to kind of break this down and talk about the severity of it. You said something in our text. You're like, this could be the biggest story in Ontario ever, maybe. Like this is not like when you hear stories like, oh, he might be guilty, he might not. Let's just wait and see. And of course, you're going to have to wait and see. That's what an investigation is. But the severity and who's investigating, what they're investigating, the things people have apologized for that you have kind of brought out of the woodwork and said, hey, remember these things. These things all play into this thing. Do you think people end up going to jail?
I think that could happen. I just know that it is politics that we follow assiduously on political stories, and it's something I've followed all my life. And there are three words that never work out well for any government: RCMP, criminal investigation. That's the headline that you never want to have if you're involved in politics. It never ends well.
Charles Adler, thanks for doing this, dude. Really appreciate it.
You bet.
Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Adler at Charles Adler is where you can find him on Twitter. His podcast is outstanding. Again, breaking news. Doug Ford, Premier of the province of Ontario, and his government, or the Ford government, is a better way to say it. I'm refining what I say thanks to Charles. He's like this little angel on my shoulder. He's like, make sure you get it right. Under criminal investigation by the RCMP's International Investigations Unit. Wow. Wow, huh? For all of you the last several years going, where's the accountability? There you go. There it is. Some accountability for you, or at least the start of what it looks like to be accountability. And what happens from here? Anybody's guess. We wait and see. And when we wait and see, we get more information, and then you can make a judgment, and then you can start calling people all kinds of names. That's what I love, is that, oh, this is going to help me with whatever name I'm going to call this person for the rest of their life. Woo! Hey, Doug. What do? I mean, you only did it in front of everybody, whatever it is you're being investigated for. We only saw all of it That's the amazing part, is that we all knew something was not right. Now the RCMP have admitted we're looking into something that appears to be not right. That's why they said they're conducting a criminal investigation into the Ford government. That's the entire government, the province of Ontario, by far the biggest province in Canada, the economic and people engine of this country. Yeah. Remember when Doug Ford changed the slogan? Ontario used to be Ontario yours to discover. Remember that? He comes into office, he's like, we're open for business. That's literally our slogan. I mean, he called it. I kind of give him credit for that, right? I kind of give him credit for like doing it all like right in front of us, telling everybody he's open for business, and it was the only thing that mattered to him. You just didn't know how open for business he was. This is going to be so much fun to watch. Right? You know what I never get tired of either? I never get tired of being right. Only been saying it for 3-4 years, as has everybody else. That was the best coffee I ever had. I think just because today. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll update you on this story as we continue to follow it. Again, Doug Ford and his government of Ontario, the entire government under criminal investigation by the RCMP. Yeah, the people on horses that mean business are horse cops. Right in there on a horse. You're going to jail, you say? Okay. So much fun. Have a great day, everybody. Don't forget, you can shop at Ed's Fine Imports for Gitch. We wear Gitch, so can you. GITCH, luxury branded underwear, boxer briefs, pouch in the front. You can never get a better pair of underwear. Right now, you can order 3, you get a fourth for free. 3, 4th for free. That means you get something for nothing. Free stuff is awesome. If it's free, it's for me. Ed's Fine Imports, Gitch3 is your promo code. Go there right now. You can order the best boxer briefs on the planet, made for Canadians by Canadians in Canada. Super breathable. You'll never go anywhere without them. I swear to God. Even got my significant other a pair of those. Yes, she is a female, but she loves them. It's all she wears at night. So go to edsfineimports.com. Order yourself a pair of Gitch today. Also, thanks to our friends at Cantork for making this possible. Makers of bolting and loosening and fastening solutions, industrial torque wrenches, the big guys, right? The stuff that you use in like nuclear facilities, railroad settings, heavy machinery. If you need a torque wrench solution, you can't find one, and you're in business around the world, you need this guy in your life. His name's Colin Livingston. Cantork.com. Again, Cantork.com for more information on how you can get your bolting solution for you in Canada, made by a Canadian for Canadians. So check it out. Go to Cantork.com for more information. Have a great day, everybody. That sucks to be Doug Ford, which I'm not. It comes for all of us, friends. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.